Welcome to the Doubles Only Tennis Podcast, where you learn the best doubles strategies to improve your game and win more matches. I'm your host, Will Bocek. This podcast, my website, and my weekly newsletter all focus on the goal of better understanding the sport of doubles and helping players like you improve faster through actionable advice that you can use in your very next match. My goal is to provide the best doubles strategy resources in the world. And to do that, I study, analyze, and work with players at every level of the game, all the way up to the ATP and WTA tours. If you enjoy this podcast, I've created doubles strategy products that go even deeper if you want to take your doubles knowledge to the next level. At the end of this episode, I'll explain more about them, or if you want to learn more now, go to thetennistribe.com/products. Here's today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Today I'm recording an episode that I hadn't planned on recording this week. Doubles has been in the news a lot recently, the last several weeks, and I wanted to share kind of an opinion, a reaction, a rebuttal to some of the content that maybe you've seen going around, maybe you've heard. Reilly Opelka kind of went off on doubles again on Instagram this time, so I'm going to share some thoughts and opinions on that. And then also John Wertheim and Andy Roddick discussed this topic briefly on Andy's Served podcast recently. I think they made some great points. I also think they're missing a few things that I'm going to talk about. I want to kind of lay out some of the facts that Andy was looking for, and then bring up some new questions. I think one of the kind of issues we're running into with this topic is there's a lot of echo chambers going on. There's a lot of people who agree with each other having conversations, which isn't really going to create any new solutions or ideas. So, to this point, for me, over the past several months, I've spoken with Jamie Murray, who's a doubles specialist. I've spoken with Calvin Betton, who coaches the Australian Open champions. Andy and John have a very similar opinion, which is definitely different than mine. So I think if we can start to have more conversations with people who disagree with us, then we can come up with better solutions going forward. And hopefully this is maybe a little bit of a step in that direction, since I'm going to be reacting to some of what Andy and John, as well as a little bit of what Reilly has said. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this is because I think Andy, John, Reilly, they know a lot more than I do about certain areas of tennis. They probably understand the history of tennis better than I do. They probably understand the current economics of tennis and how it all works better than I do. But I think I can share a little bit of a fan perspective as well as a doubles perspective, because I think over the last 5 years or so, there's probably no one who's interviewed more doubles players and doubles coaches and had more conversations about how to improve doubles than I have. So I've spent certainly more time thinking about this problem than Andy or John or Reilly, who have other different, problems to solve or bigger fish to fry, I guess. So I wanted to share my opinion for those reasons. And again, one of the problems is that we're creating these echo chambers, and I'm hoping maybe I can have Reilly or John Wertheim or Andy Roddick on the podcast, and we can have this conversation and maybe break through some of the kind of barriers that people seem to be stuck in, because it's kind of this back and forth that's been going on for a few years now, where doubles players aren't making any money, and then the doubles players come back and say, well, there's no marketing for us. And there's a lot of nuance here, and I want to talk a little bit about that, and then go through a few quotes from John and Andy's podcast, and hopefully this can start to get some of those conversations going. So all of this began with Reilly Opelka's comments on Instagram recently. So let me pull those up here. I've got my notes that I'm trying to read off of for y'all. So he commented on an Instagram post making a sarcastic comment. Somebody replied to him, and then he said, I was being sarcastic. They should 100% get rid of dubs. It's for failed singles players. There's no such thing as a doubles specialist. They don't sell a single ticket. They take up practice courts, physios, resources. They don't turn a profit. and they complain that they don't make enough money. That's pretty greedy behavior, if you ask me. So he's got some fair points in there. He's also got some, I guess, logical leaps in there and some things that I might question a little bit. Again, I would love to talk with Reilly about this more, and I want to get more information and data on all this as well. But that kind of created a storm on Instagram and Twitter, and there have been articles written about this. He's even added watch more doubles, the hashtag to his Instagram profile, which honestly I thought was kind of funny, even though I'm not on the same, I guess, side as him. So he's kind of trolling doubles, if you will. So yesterday, or the past few days, I was at the ATX Open. This morning, I drove back from Austin to my home in Fort Worth, and I listened to Andy, Roddick, and Jon Wertheim on the Served podcast talk about this topic. So one of the things I 100% agree with, and I think most people listening to this will, is Jon said something's got to change. And I think we all agree on that. I think we all agree the current state of doubles isn't the solution going forward. But the thing we disagree on is the path forward. What potential does doubles have? So one of the topics that's been brought up a lot is the second week of a major. So starting doubles, let's say at the US Open, it's a 2-week event. What if we start doubles on Friday or Saturday or Sunday? And then doubles is during the second week. Now, I think this does make some sense in theory because the outside courts don't have a lot of content during week 2. The problem with this, in my mind, is that if you go to the US Open Thursday to Sunday during the Labor Day weekend, when it's very, very crowded, the outside courts are a lot of doubles matches. And that is a lot of grounds pass holders who are watching those doubles matches. If you go to the doubles matches, most of them are pretty full. That's just true. I've been for 4 or 5 years in a row. So most of the doubles matches during that weekend are pretty full. Now, if they get rid of those, say on Thursday and Friday, and they don't start doubles till Sunday, then what's going to happen is they're going to have to come up with some other type of content to put on those courts, or else they're going to have to sell fewer grounds passes. And I believe it's around, I'm not positive, but I've seen some data on this from a guy on Twitter called Racket Matt, who does a great job researching this stuff. I believe it was around 30% of profit for the US Open is ticket sales. So by cutting grounds passes, you are directly cutting into the profit. Now, we're not even taking into account those grounds pass holders who are watching the doubles matches are drinking a lot of honey deuces. If you're in Arthur Ashe, you're only allowed to go in and out of the stadium on changeovers. But if you're at a doubles match on court 9, you can go get a honey deuce whenever you want. So they're probably drinking more honey deuces than the typical Arthur Ashe singles audience. But anyway, so that's one of the things I worry about a little bit with week 2 of a major. I don't want to harp on that for too long. Maybe it would work. Maybe I'm missing something. But I do think that kind of late week 1, removing the doubles from that is going to create kind of a squeeze on the tournament in terms of content on the courts. And then by Tuesday of the US Open, there's just not that many grounds passes. So if we had more doubles on those outside courts, they'd have to sell more grounds passes, and they're not going to be able to sell grounds passes by having more doubles on a Tuesday and Wednesday because these fans don't know the doubles players. So they're not, because the doubles players aren't the stars of our tour. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. So in this case, they would have to have singles players who lose early play the doubles. They would have to remarket it. Watch, Andre Rublev play doubles, or if for some reason Alcaraz loses week 1, which probably won't happen anytime soon, you can get him to play doubles, or Danielle Collins, or whoever it is. So there's a few different, I guess, scenarios with that. Now, one of the other things he said is we don't need double specialists. We don't need players on tour with no ambition of making it as a singles player. So This is where I think you need a little bit of vision to see what's potentially possible. So I was trying to think of other sports. Driving came to mind. So if you're, a 10-year-old or 12-year-old and you're really into cars and you're really into driving, you can go try to be an F1 driver or F2 or F3. You can go try to be a NASCAR driver. You can be a drag racer. There's different types of professional driving. And I really see a world maybe in 10, 20 years where being a doubles specialist is a thing. And there is a doubles tour where there's kids playing tennis and they're 10, 12, 15 years old, and they can genuinely decide, I want to be a pro doubles player instead of a singles player. And I think that's possible. If pickleball can blow up the way it has, I think doubles can too. It just needs to be done in the right way. And I'll get to marketing here in a second. Um, Whether it's part of this singles tour as it is now, or a totally separate division, to my I'm not somebody who follows driving a lot, but I believe NASCAR and F1 are just totally separate businesses, and they both do really well. So it's possible that singles and doubles tours could be totally separate businesses in 20 years, and they could both do really well. Maybe singles is bigger. I think F1's pretty significantly bigger than NASCAR, but NASCAR does fine. Golf even has a long driving contest tour where those guys get paid to hit long drives. It's a fraction of what I imagine a PGA Tour player makes or live golf now, but it is a professional option. So I think doubles can, if long driving can be a professional sports career, I think doubles can too. I don't see any reason why we can't have double specialists going forward, whether again it's part of the singles tour or a separate. So another thing Jon said is we need familiarity, we need names. So I assume by that he means stars. I agree with him in the short term. I think the short term solution to growing doubles, if somebody comes to me and says, we need you to grow doubles in the next 2 years, the answer is not to market double specialists. I'm friends with a lot of double specialists. I think double specialists do have a place on tour over the long term. But if I only have 2 years to do it, the answer is to get Alcaraz, Iga, Coco Golf, all of the single stars to somehow play doubles. Now, if we can have a longer vision, like I talked about earlier, you have to have a little bit of a vision for this. I think there's a blend, right? Short term, sure. What can we do to get some of these single stars onto the doubles court? How can we make some changes, make some adjustments? Long term, we've got to find a way to tell the stories of the doubles players and market the product a little bit. Maybe that means making changes to the product. I don't know. I know a lot of people have different opinions. Some people think the product's fine. Some people think the men's side should start behind the service line on first serves. Some people think they need to shorten the format for TV. There's a lot of different opinions. I've talked about this on other podcasts with Jamie Murray, with a number of other players and coaches. So you can check that out if you'd like. But regardless, I think short-term solution, we've got to get the tennis stars on the doubles court. Long-term solution, we've got to create something that's viable, something that is a viable product that is marketed the right way, and where we tell the stories of the players. Now, Andy also mentioned, double specialist. It used to mean you were better at doubles than you were at singles. Now it doesn't mean that. I've kind of touched on this already. I do think there's a place for double specialists in the future. But again, this is something that, they talked a lot about on the episode, show me the data, show me the facts. This is something that I think you kind of have to have a vision for because there are no facts. There is no, if you want me to show you that a professional doubles court tour can turn a profit, there's no data for that. It's not been done. I'm about to make some arguments why I think it can be done, but there's not any previous data on that, to my knowledge. Jon also mentioned that they talked about a lot of the responses of the double specialists. They mentioned a few names, and Jon said that none of them responded with a business case. I think that's true. They talked about tradition. They talked about what it meant to be a doubles player, different different kind of intangibles, but there was no business case. And I agree, nobody's responded with that. I'm about to make what I think is a little bit of a business case here in a second, or at least the best I can, hopefully, to get some ideas out there and conversations going. So, one of Andy's questions, he asked Jon what's the percentage of prize money that goes to doubles player? Jon said it was around 20%. I think that's about right. And then he said, what percent of revenue do doubles players bring in? They said maybe 5%. It's probably less than that. It's also very, very difficult to measure. And I'll talk about that in a second. But he said, let's have a conversation using facts, not feelings. So let's go through a few facts and a few things that they mentioned on their podcast that I think they kind of brushed over a little bit. And a few things that I think I disagree with. I think they're simply not true. So one thing is it is tough to measure how much revenue doubles players bring in. So if we look at the US Open, for example, during week one, if they're getting rid of doubles on, say, Thursday or Friday during week one, there's a lot of fans on the courts watching doubles. A lot of those fans are eating there. They're hanging out all day. They're drinking honey deuces. That's a lot of revenue. They would either have to somehow find a way to create other content on that court, or they would have to get rid of the grounds passes that they're selling to those fans. They would have to reduce the number of grounds passes that they're selling. So I think that at a tournament like the US Open, at the majors, I imagine it is profiting, having doubles there, having the content there, because a lot of fans, again, buy those grounds passes, they're on site, they're watching doubles. If they can come up with some other solution, maybe it's possible. I don't know. The smaller tournaments, I'm not sure that doubles is generating a ton of revenue. This would be interesting to speak to maybe a tournament director about, but I've been to a few recently, 500 and 250 tournaments. The doubles matches often don't have great crowds. Sometimes they do. At the ATX Open the past few days, the doubles crowds have been pretty solid, especially for a Monday and Tuesday. I'm recording this on Wednesday. The doubles crowds were pretty good. I think Austin likes doubles a lot. I was at the Dallas Open a few weeks ago. The doubles crowds weren't great. When Ben Shelton played doubles, the crowds were great. The crowds actually cheered loudness for Horacio Zeballos when he would hit a winner, even more so than Ben Shelton, which is one reason I think the product is fantastic. I think it was really exciting for some of those fans who had never watched doubles to see. But regardless, I'm not sure the 250s and 500s are profiting off doubles. I don't know the answer to that. And maybe no, but that's my argument for the US Open, some of the bigger tournaments. Indian Wells is coming up. I think they probably do profit off doubles through the grounds passes and then just the on-site food and beverage cost and merchandise sales. So another topic that they talked about, and this was towards the end, and I'll link to their conversation in the podcast below, as well as kind of the minute where you can listen to it. But Andy asked Jon and Mike, their producer over there, is there a product on Earth that's been widely available for 50 years that people don't use? And if you're the CEO and someone comes in and says, people know what it is, the data is telling us people are choosing not to use it, but that's because we're not promoting the product in the correct way. So he's asking, does that make sense? And of course it doesn't make sense the way he phrased that. He went on to say, everyone knows what doubles is. It's not user education. Most of tennis fandom chooses not to watch it. So this is where I definitely have some disagreements. And I think that some of the assumptions in there are incorrect. And the question was a little bit loaded as well. So what I think is that the tours haven't tried to market it in the right way. Now, there's a lot of questions I have about this. So one, when did double specialists start to become a thing? My understanding is it was around the maybe 90s to 2000s that started to kind of transition. Obviously, the Bryan brothers did a great job. This is an area that I am not super savvy on the history behind it, but what I believe is that the doubles tour or the tours have mostly neglected doubles. And of course, it's not profiting because they've mostly neglected it. So I think a better question is to name a business or a CEO where they have a department in their business that they've neglected for 10 to 20 years, and they decide to keep that department on board and don't make any changes. And I think that's what's been happening for doubles, at least over the last 10 to 20 years. The the tournaments have been neglecting doubles. So of course it's not profiting, but they just keep it this way it is. And we are starting to see some changes, which has been really encouraging the last several years. Social media is one of the easiest places for me to go look and see how much tournaments care and are investing into doubles. Social media is very cheap. All of their systems are in place to use Instagram, use Twitter, use Facebook to promote their tournaments. And it's basically free to them or very cheap at least, since the systems are in place. So I've been to several tournaments this year, and I go to the tournament Instagram page, go to the tournament Twitter page. On one recently, I won't call them out. I believe I did a few podcast episodes ago. I had to scroll. I checked it on Thursday of the tournament. It was a 1-week tournament. I checked it on Thursday. So this was the 4th day of play. And I had to go to the 140th post on Instagram to see anything about doubles. And that post was from before the tournament even started. So they had posted 0 posts on Instagram. On Twitter, it was the 86th post. Again, it was before the tournament even started. So this was well into the tournament. They had posted 0 about doubles on Twitter and Instagram. There's 2 tournaments I just looked at that are going on right now. Neither of them had a post about doubles on Instagram or Twitter since the tournament started on Monday. There was one exception. Acapulco had one interview on Instagram with Santiago Gonzalez. He's from Mexico. It was just an interview. It was not a score. It was not a result. It was not a highlight. It was an interview with Santi because he's very popular in Mexico and has a big crowd there. So, social media isn't everything, but this is kind of telling. It's like if if you say that the product isn't working, but you're not investing in it, I'm not sure how it's supposed to work. And this isn't the only solution. I'm not saying marketing is the only answer. This is just one piece to the puzzle. And looking at social media profiles of the tournaments is telling, and it shows you how much do they care about doubles, how much are they investing into this. Personally, one of the other quotes that I mentioned earlier, he said, everyone knows what doubles is. It's not user education. Most of tennis fans choose not to watch it. So I started Tennis Tribe back in 2016. I started following the Pro Tour more around 2020 and started really promoting doubles the last 3 or 4 years. Our business is pretty small. It's me, a few contractors. I don't have a huge following. I've got a small email list. We have 12,000 Instagram followers, maybe 5,000 or so, 4,000 on Facebook, 5,000 on YouTube. It's growing steadily, but we're not, tennis channel. We're not served with Andy Roddick. But with this small audience on a very regular basis, I will get direct messages through Twitter, through Instagram. I will get emails where people ask me where to watch the doubles. So if I get that on a regular basis with my small audience, I actually think user education is a piece to this puzzle. I think that people don't know where to watch doubles because they're asking me, and I'm not part of the tournament. I'm not part of the tour. I'm just somebody who likes doubles and promotes it. So if that's happening and I have a very small audience, I'd imagine that, let's say I was able to 10x my audience or 100x my audience over the next 5 years. Then if that same rate of audience expansion to ratio of audience expansion, the number of people that follow Tennis Tribe, to the number of people who email me or direct message me asking where to watch doubles continued, that would be a significant amount of people watching doubles. So I think user education is a part of this. Of course, people know what doubles is. Most of the people at the tournaments are playing doubles, but they don't know professional doubles necessarily exist, and they don't know where to watch it. They don't know how to watch it. And the social media is one small piece of this. I have friends who have played on their high school tennis team. They don't really follow the pro tour. Maybe I haven't seen them in a while. I'll talk to them about what I'm doing, and I'll tell them, I follow the pro doubles tour. I run a media company that covers the pro doubles tour. A lot of them don't know that there's a pro doubles tour. Now, these aren't people who are super into tennis, right? They're just general sports fans. But they'll tell me, oh, I didn't even know a pro doubles tour was a thing. I didn't know you could be a pro doubles player. So I do think user education is a piece of the pie. Now, one of the other problems that I think we run into with the product, at least on TV, or if you stream doubles on Tennis Channel Plus or ATP TV, there's no announcers. And when they do have announcers, a lot of times the announcers don't know doubles very well. They don't know the players, they don't know their stories. So it makes for not a great TV product. So I think, the best example is Renee Stubbs. When you watch a doubles match and Renee Stubbs is calling the match, you're going to learn something. And people talk about it all the time. When you watch a match with her calling it, you're going to learn strategy that you can implement into your own game. And I think that is kind of the future for doubles, or at least a potential future that could work. I think if people can tune in and learn how to implement some of these tactics at their own game, and you can't tell me that they can't implement the tactics, because I do teach it to lower level players. It just happens at a lot slower rate, obviously. I think that there's a blend of kind of strategy with TV, and there's an opportunity there. I spoke with Matt Ebden last year about changes to doubles. He was on the player council at the time. If we can think of ways to make it more interactive, more fun, play music between points, get rid of the changeovers. I've talked about this on a lot of different podcasts. So you can check those out if you want to hear more about the ideas. But the point is to continue to innovate. And I'm glad to see the tours doing that. I'm glad the US Open is trying something with the mixed doubles, even if I don't agree with all of the changes that they're making this year. But it's good to make changes. And I think, like I said at the top, I think double specialists can serve a role on some kind of doubles tour. At the majors, if you get a ticket to the men's final on a Sunday of the US Open, your ticket says men's singles final. Could the US Open maybe email ticket holders and say, hey, the men's singles final is at 3:00. Come at noon and pregame, and buy some honeydeuces, and watch the doubles final, the women's doubles final. They could do that. To my knowledge, I don't think they do that. I just spoke with a player who was in the Australian Open mixed doubles final, and the Australian Open had a communication issue with their mixed final, and people couldn't get in to watch the match. So they were playing the mixed doubles final at the Australian Open, going for a major title, and there was almost no one in the stadium because people couldn't get into the match because you had to have a ticket to the men's final. So it's these little details that continue to tell me the tours and the tournaments are mostly neglecting doubles. It's not a thing of they're trying to make it work and they are not able to make it profitable. I think to this point, it's been more neglect than it's been the former, what I just said. So I think if you're going to have a part of your business that you're going to neglect, why would you just keep it the way it is? Why not either sell it or make changes and invest in it? And I think those are the two directions that each tournament, each tour has to decide on where to go with doubles. It seems like the US Open, it seems like Indian Wells is doing mixed doubles again this year. It seems like they're going to start to invest in it. Even if I don't agree with all their changes, I'm glad they're trying something. They're trying to invest in it. And I'll end with this, a quote from Andy from his podcast. He said, I think we should start talking about solutions. And I 100% agree with him. I think that there's lots of people talking about the problems. Opelka's talked about the problems a lot. I've discussed all the problems with Jamie Murray, with Calvin Betton, with Dan Kiernan, with Rajiv Ram, all sorts of players and coaches, but we've got to start coming up with solutions. And I'm hoping the tours and the tournaments will continue to experiment and continue to find that blend of bringing the existing single stars into doubles, as well as promoting doubles, telling the doubles players stories, and developing kind of a sustainable tour. So if you have any thoughts on this, any comments, I'd love to hear from you. You can always reach out on social medias. I'm going to try to keep this conversation going. I'd really like to have someone on who, again, disagrees with me. I think that's where progress is made. If we can have two people who disagree with each other, having a genuine conversation with curiosity about doubles, I think we can move forward and continue to make positive changes. So this turned into a pretty long episode. Hopefully you all enjoyed this. If you, again, have any thoughts, reach out on social media, and I will talk to you all soon. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Doubles Only podcast. If you're interested in diving deeper into any topics I discuss, I've created doubles strategy products that allow me to bring you more podcasts and other doubles content without relying on paid ads. I have ebooks and courses that help you make better strategic decisions during matches and become the smartest player on the court. Go to thetennistribe.com/products to learn more. You can also join my free weekly doubles strategy newsletter that includes video lessons and more on our homepage. If you want to connect, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or email me directly, will@thetennistribe.com.